The moment I see her text, I know something's wrong. My wife, Claire, has been acting distant for weeks, maybe months. Late nights at the office, unexplained weekend plans, and a smile that no longer feels like it's mine. But this text seals it. I'm sitting in my car, parked just outside her workplace, when her phone buzzes on the seat next to me. She's left it behind again, careless, just like her lies. My gut churns as I pick it up. The message on the screen is innocuous at first glance. Tonight at 8. Same place. But the sender's name makes my blood boil. Ryan. Ryan is her coworker, the one she's always hated, according to her. Yet here he is, texting her like he owns her time, like he knows she'll say yes. I tap the screen to open the thread. My hands shake, adrenaline surging through me. The messages unravel everything. Flirty banter, late-night confessions, plans for future rendezvous. My chest tightens with every word, every emoji, every damn confirmation of what I've suspected for weeks. Unbelievable, I mutter under my breath. My vision blurs, the edges of my world closing in. I slam the phone down on the passenger seat and grip the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. Betrayal is a strange beast. It doesn't just hurt. It sets you on fire, makes you think and act in ways you never imagined. And right now, all I can think about is getting even. I've been Claire's devoted husband for 8 years. I've given her everything: time, love, loyalty. And this is how she repays me? Not anymore. She wants to play games? Fine, but I'll rewrite the rules. Before I even realize it, I'm driving to the one person I swore I'd never involve in my marriage, her mother. As I pull into her mother's driveway, my heart pounds like a war drum. Vivian, Claire's mom, has always been a wild card. Beautiful, sharp-witted, and a little too flirtatious for her own good. But right now, she's my ticket to vengeance. I knock on the door, and it swings open within seconds. Vivian is standing there in a silk robe, her hair swept up like she's just stepped out of a photo shoot. Her emerald eyes widen in surprise when she sees me. "Jake?" she asks, tilting her head. "What are you doing here? Is Claire okay?" "She's fine," I say, stepping past her into the living room. The smell of vanilla and some expensive wine fills the air. At least, I think she is. But we need to talk. Vivian closes the door behind me and follows, her bare feet patting softly on the hardwood floor. "You look upset. What's going on?" I sit on her pristine white couch, my hands still trembling. "I found out Claire's been cheating on me," I blurt out, "with a guy from her office." Vivian's expression shifts from shock to something darker, disappointment, maybe even anger. She lowers herself into the armchair across from me, her robe parting slightly to reveal her toned legs. "Are you sure?" I nod and toss Claire's phone onto the coffee table between us. "See for yourself." Vivian picks it up and scrolls through the messages. Her face tightens with every word she reads. "That little. I can't believe this," she mutters, her voice dripping with venom. "I raised her better than this." "Apparently not," I snap, unable to contain my bitterness. Vivian sets the phone down and leans back, her gaze locking onto mine. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I admit, "but I'm not just going to sit here and let her walk all over me." For a moment, there's silence between us, the tension crackling like static. Then Vivian leans forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Jake, if you want to make her regret this, I think I can help." I blink, caught off guard. "What are you saying?" A sly smile tugs at the corner of her lips. "Let's just say Claire isn't the only one in this family who's capable of bending the rules." Her hand brushes lightly against mine, sending a jolt of something electric through me. Maybe it's time she learns what it feels like to be betrayed. Her words hang in the air, dangerous and tantalizing. My logical side screams at me to walk away, to keep things civil. But my pride, my anger, it's louder. "What do you have in mind?" I ask, leaning in. Vivian's smile widens. "Oh, trust me, Jake. She won't see this coming." The next few days feel like a fever dream. Vivian and I spend hours plotting behind closed doors, weaving a plan so intricate it's impossible for Claire to come out unscathed. Vivian's wit and sharp tongue make her a natural conspirator, and I can't help but marvel at how easily she takes to the game. We decide to play the long game, not a quick, dramatic confrontation, but a slow, calculated strike. It begins with a dinner invitation. "Invite her here," Vivian says one evening as we sip wine on her back patio. The setting sun casts a golden glow on her face, making her look almost ethereal. "We'll act like nothing's wrong. Meanwhile, you and I will give her reasons to feel uneasy." I arch a brow. "What do you mean?" Vivian leans closer, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Let's just say we'll let her imagination do the work. Subtle glances, small touches, things she'll notice but won't dare call out." The idea sends a thrill through me, not just because of the revenge, but because of Vivian herself. Her energy is magnetic, her confidence intoxicating. For the first time since discovering Claire's betrayal, I feel alive. The night of the dinner, I arrive early to help Vivian prepare. She's dressed to kill in a black cocktail dress that hugs her curves in all the right places. Her perfume lingers in the air as she moves around the kitchen, and I find myself struggling to keep my focus. When Claire arrives, she's oblivious to the storm brewing around her. She greets us both with a smile that feels rehearsed, her eyes darting nervously between me and her mother. Good. She can sense it already. We sit down to eat, and the tension at the table is almost palpable. Vivian and I exchange knowing glances, sharing subtle smirks that Claire notices but doesn't comment on. At one point, Vivian places her hand on my arm as she laughs at one of my jokes, and I see Claire's smile falter. "So, Jake," Vivian says, her voice dripping with faux innocence, "how have you been holding up with work? Claire told me you've been pulling long hours." "Yeah, it's been tough," I reply, matching her tone, "but I've had some distractions to keep me sane." Vivian's lips curl into a smile. "Well, everyone needs a distraction now and then." Claire stabs her fork into her salad, her movements stiff and deliberate. "Is that so?" she says, her voice tight. "Absolutely," Vivian replies smoothly. "Life's too short to stay stuck in the same routine." The dinner drags on, each moment more excruciating for Claire. By the time dessert is served, she's practically squirming in her seat. I can see the questions forming in her mind, the paranoia taking root. It's exactly what we wanted. When she leaves, her goodbye is curt, her tone clipped. As the door closes behind her, Vivian turns to me with a triumphant grin. "And so it begins," she says, raising her wine glass. I clink mine against hers, a dark satisfaction bubbling inside me. To Claire's unraveling. Part 4. Pushing the boundaries. The days following that dinner are a game of cat and mouse, and Claire is the prey. She's suspicious but lacks proof, her unease growing with every passing moment. Meanwhile, Vivian and I up the ante. Vivian calls me one afternoon. Her voice is playful, laced with a dangerous edge. "Jake, darling, I think it's time we give her a little more incentive to spiral. How about you forget your phone at my place next time you visit?" The suggestion makes me chuckle. "You're wicked. You know that?" "Only when I need to be," she purrs. And trust me, this is one of those times. That evening, I drop by Vivian's house under the pretense of returning a casserole dish Claire had left behind. We keep the conversation light, but every word, every glance feels charged. When I leave, I accidentally leave my phone on the kitchen counter. The next morning, as planned, Vivian texts Claire. "Hey, sweetie, Jake left his phone here last night. Want me to drop it off at your place, or should I hold on to it until he comes back?" Within minutes, Claire responds. "What was Jake doing at your house last night? He didn't tell me he was going there." Vivian waits a full hour before replying, letting Claire stew in her own thoughts. "Oh, didn't he? I'm sure it was just a slip. He was helping me move some furniture around." By the time I get my phone back, Claire is livid. She corners me in the kitchen, her arms crossed, her eyes blazing. "Why were you at my mom's last night?" I play it cool, shrugging nonchalantly. "She needed help with some furniture. I didn't think it was a big deal." "You didn't think it was a big deal to tell me?" she snaps. "Why are you so upset about this?" I counter, my tone sharp. "You've been running around doing who knows what with Ryan. but I can't help your mother with some furniture? Her face pales, and I know I've struck a nerve. What are you talking about? She stammers. Oh, come on, Claire, I say, leaning closer. You didn't think I'd figure it out? The late nights, the sudden secrecy. It's obvious. For a moment, she looks like she's going to deny it, but then she folds, her shoulders slumping. It's not what you think, she whispers, her voice barely audible. It never is, I reply, walking past her. But don't worry, Claire. I'm learning to move on. Her silence follows me as I leave the room, and I know the seed of doubt has been firmly planted. The cracks in Claire's composure start to show. She spends more time pacing the house, shooting me questioning glances, and even making excuses to call Vivian under the guise of casual conversation. I can see it eating at her. The thought that she's losing control, that I might have secrets of my own. Vivian, ever the puppet master, keeps the pressure on. She sends me texts at odd hours, knowing Claire will see the notifications light up my phone. Innocuous messages like, had a great time last night, winky face, or thanks again for everything, Jake. You're a lifesaver. One evening, as we're sitting on the couch, Claire finally snaps. Why is my mother texting you so much? She blurts, her voice trembling with barely contained frustration. I don't look up from the TV. She's lonely, I guess, I say casually. You've been so busy lately, she probably just needs someone to talk to. Her jaw tightens. And you think it's appropriate for her to talk to you? Don't you think that's a little weird? I glance at her, feigning innocence. What's weird about it? I'm just helping her out. She's family, Claire. Her eyes narrow, and I can see the gears turning in her head. Helping her out with what, exactly? I let a bead of silence hang in the air, just long enough to make her squirm. Little things, I say finally. Fixing stuff around the house, keeping her company. You know, the kind of things you'd do if you weren't so busy. Claire doesn't respond right away. Instead, she stares at me, her expression a mix of anger and confusion. I can practically see the storm brewing behind her eyes. Later that night, I hear her on the phone with Vivian. I stand outside the bedroom door, listening to her strained voice as she tries to sound casual. Hey, Mom. Just wanted to check in. Have you been doing okay? Vivian's laughter drifts faintly through the phone. I'm fine, sweetie. Why do you ask? No reason, Claire says quickly. Jake mentioned he's been spending a lot of time helping you out. I just thought I'd see if everything was all right. Vivian doesn't miss a beat. Oh, Jake's been wonderful. He's such a sweetheart, isn't he? Claire's grip on the phone tightens. I can hear it in the silence that follows. Yeah, she says finally, her voice tight. He's something. After the call, she doesn't speak to me for the rest of the night. But I can feel her watching me, her suspicion growing with every passing moment. It's exactly what I wanted. Claire's paranoia is palpable. She's on edge, watching me like a hawk while pretending everything's fine. It's a delicate dance we're playing, and I'm savoring every step. Vivian and I decide it's time to take things further. One afternoon, while Claire is at work, I meet Vivian at a quiet cafe downtown. She's dressed impeccably, as always, her confidence radiating like a beacon. As we sip our coffees, she leans in and lowers her voice. I think it's time we leave her a breadcrumb, she says, a sly smile tugging at her lips. Something small, but enough to push her over the edge. What did you have in mind? I ask, intrigued. Vivian pulls a small, lavender-scented handkerchief from her bag and slides it across the table. Leave this somewhere she'll find it. Somewhere she won't expect. I take the handkerchief, running my fingers over the soft fabric. You're diabolical. She chuckles, a rich, throaty sound that sends a shiver down my spine. You're not so bad yourself, Jake. Now, let's make this fun. That evening, I tuck the handkerchief into the glove compartment of my car. It's a calculated risk. Claire rarely looks in there, but I know her well enough to anticipate she might if she's desperate enough for answers. Sure enough, a few days later, she finds it. We're driving to dinner when I catch her rifling through the compartment. The moment her fingers brush against the fabric, she freezes. What's this? She asks, holding up the handkerchief like it's radioactive. I glance at it, feigning surprise. Oh, that must be your mom's. She left it in my car last week. Her face flushes, a mix of anger and disbelief. Why would she leave a handkerchief in your car? I don't know, I say, keeping my tone deliberately casual. She was probably wiping something up. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? She snaps, her voice rising. Jake, this is weird. You're spending all this time with my mom, and now I'm finding her things in your car. I pull the car over, taking a deep breath. Claire, do you even hear yourself right now? You're acting like something's going on between me and your mom. That's insane. Her eyes dart away, and I can see her struggling to form a coherent response. I don't understand why you're so close with her all of a sudden. I lean closer, my voice soft but firm. Maybe if you weren't so busy sneaking around with Ryan, I wouldn't have to. The words hit her like a slap. She recoils, her mouth opening and closing as if trying to protest. But she says nothing. Instead, she shoves the handkerchief back into the glove compartment and stares out the window, silent for the rest of the drive. The tension in the house is thick enough to cut with a knife. Claire barely speaks to me now, her eyes darting between suspicion and guilt every time we're in the same room. She's unraveling, and Vivian and I aren't about to stop. It's Vivian who suggests the next move during one of our secret meetings. She's on edge, Jake. We need to push her just a little further, give her something tangible to latch onto. And how do we do that? I ask, intrigued. Vivian smirks, her eyes gleaming. Leave her with a visual. Something she can't explain away. That weekend, I invite Vivian over to the house while Claire is at work. We spend the afternoon casually arranging the scene. A wine glass left on the counter with a trace of lipstick, a pair of high heels forgotten near the living room couch. It's subtle but deliberate, a collection of details that would raise questions in anyone's mind. When Claire returns home, she's immediately on high alert. I'm sitting on the couch, watching TV, the picture of nonchalance. Hey, she says, her voice strained. How was your day? Good, I reply without looking at her. Yours? She doesn't answer. Instead, she moves into the kitchen, where the first breadcrumb awaits. I hear her footsteps pause, then quicken. Moments later, she's standing in the doorway, holding the lipstick-stained glass. What's this? She demands. I glance over, feigning confusion. A wine glass. What's the problem? Her hand trembles as she holds it up. This isn't my lipstick, Jake. I shrug. It must be your mom's. She stopped by earlier to drop something off. Claire's face hardens, her breath coming faster. She stopped by? For what? She didn't say. Just stayed for a glass of wine and left. I keep my tone deliberately casual, as if there's nothing unusual about it. Claire sets the glass down with a loud clink and storms into the living room. Her eyes land on the heels by the couch, and I can see the moment her anger turns to something darker. Fear, maybe even dread. Why are her shoes here? She asks, her voice a low hiss. She must have forgotten them, I reply. Why are you so worked up about this, Claire? Why am I? She cuts herself off, her fists clenching at her sides. This isn't normal, Jake. You're spending all this time with my mother, and now you're making excuses for why her things are all over our house. I stand, my expression calm but firm. Maybe if you weren't so distracted with your own extracurricular activities, you'd notice that I've been here, keeping this house together. Her face twists in anger, but I can see the panic lurking just beneath the surface. She's teetering on the edge, and I know it's only a matter of time before she snaps. I don't know what you're trying to prove, she spits, but this is insane. Insane? I echo, stepping closer. You don't even see the irony, do you, Claire? You're so quick to point fingers, but you can't even look in the mirror. She falters, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for a retort. Finally, she storms upstairs, slamming the bedroom door behind her. As I sit back down on the couch, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Vivian. How'd she take it? I reply with a single word, perfectly. The next morning, Claire is unusually quiet. She barely eats her breakfast, her eyes fixed on the table. I can see the turmoil churning inside her, the questions she's too afraid to ask. When she finally speaks, Her voice is low and cautious. Jake, we need to talk. I lean back in my chair, crossing my arms. About what? Her gaze flickers toward me, hesitant. About you and my mom. I raise an eyebrow, feigning surprise. What about us? She takes a deep breath, clearly struggling to keep her composure. Don't play dumb. You've been spending a lot of time with her lately, and now I'm finding her things in our house, hearing about these little visits. It's not normal, Jake. I hold her gaze, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her uncomfortable. What exactly are you accusing me of, Claire? Her jaw tightens. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying it's strange. Don't you think? I lean forward, my voice calm but sharp. What I think, Claire, is that you're projecting. You've been sneaking around with Ryan, lying to my face, and now you're looking for someone else to blame. Her face pales, her mouth falling open. That's not. Don't deny it. I cut her off. I've seen the texts. I know everything. For a moment, she looks like she might fight back, but then her shoulders slump. Jake, I'm sorry, she whispers, her voice trembling. I made a mistake. A mistake? I echo, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You don't get to call months of lies and deceit a mistake. She flinches, tears welling in her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you. Didn't you? I stand, towering over her. Or did you just not think you'd get caught? Her silence is answer enough. I take a step back, shaking my head. You don't even realize how much damage you've done, do you? Jake, please, she pleads, reaching for my arm. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I pull away, my voice cold. You can't fix this, Claire. Not anymore. Her tears spill over, but I feel no sympathy. Instead, I turn and walk out of the room, leaving her to drown in her guilt. Upstairs, I grab my phone and text Vivian. She knows about Ryan. She's cracking. Vivian's reply comes almost instantly. Good. Now let's see how far she'll go to keep you. Claire's apology doesn't stop her from spiraling further. She spends the next few days oscillating between clinging to me and retreating into herself. The tension is suffocating, but I let it simmer. Vivian and I have agreed. This is the moment to push harder. The turning point comes late one evening. I'm in the living room, scrolling through my phone, when Claire sits down next to me. Her presence feels heavy, like she's gearing up for a conversation she doesn't want to have. Jake, she begins hesitantly, her hands twisting in her lap. I've been thinking about us. I glance at her, feigning mild curiosity. Yeah. She nods, her eyes darting nervously. I know I've made mistakes. Big ones. But I want to fix this. I want to fix us. I say nothing, waiting for her to continue. I've been unfair to you, she says, her voice trembling. You've been so understanding, even when I didn't deserve it. And now, with everything happening, I realize I've taken you for granted. There's a moment of silence as I let her words hang in the air. Then I lean forward, my voice measured. So, what are you saying, Claire? She takes a deep breath, her gaze locked on mine. I'm saying I want to start over. A clean slate. No more secrets, no more lies. I nod slowly, leaning back in my chair. That's a nice thought, but actions speak louder than words. Her face falls, and I can see the desperation creeping in. What do you want me to do, Jake? Just tell me, and I'll do it. I hesitate, letting her stew in her own panic. Then, with calculated precision, I say, maybe you should start by asking yourself why you're so obsessed with me and your mom. Her eyes widen, her breath catching in her throat. What do you mean? I shrug. You've been acting like there's something going on, Claire. Something you can't handle. She starts, but her words falter. She looks away, her hands clutching the fabric of her jeans. It's just, she's my mother, Jake. And you're my husband. It's not normal. Normal? I repeat, my voice sharp. You want to talk about normal, Claire? Because what you've been doing with Ryan sure as hell isn't. Her face flushes with shame, but I don't let up. This isn't about me and your mom. This is about you deflecting your guilt. Admit it. She stammers, her voice cracking. I don't know what to think anymore. Maybe you should figure it out. I say coldly, standing up, because I'm done being your scapegoat. I leave her sitting there, tears streaming down her face, and head to the bedroom. My phone buzzes on the nightstand. Another message from Vivian. How's our girl holding up? I smirk as I type my response. She's a mess. Perfect. The next day, Vivian calls me early. Her tone is unusually serious. Jake, I think it's time we shift gears. Claire is spiraling, but we need to nudge her over the edge. What do you have in mind? I ask, curious. I'll invite her over for lunch, Vivian says. Just the two of us. I'll plant some ideas, let her insecurities do the rest. That's risky, I reply, though the prospect excites me. What if she confronts you? Vivian laughs softly. Trust me, she won't. She's too scared to admit what she's feeling. Later that day, Claire leaves for her mother's house. I know she's been avoiding this conversation, unsure if she wants confirmation of what she suspects. As the minutes tick by, I imagine how the scene might unfold. Vivian's carefully chosen words, Claire's growing panic, the seeds of doubt blossoming into full-blown paranoia. I wait for hours, my phone silent. It's only after nightfall that Claire returns. The moment she steps through the door, I know something has changed. Her face is pale, her eyes rimmed red as if she's been crying. How was lunch? I ask, feigning ignorance. She flinches at my question but quickly recovers, forcing a tight smile. Fine. Mom's doing fine. Good to hear, I say, keeping my tone light. I was starting to think you might have had something to say. Her gaze snaps to mine, her composure cracking. What's that supposed to mean? I shrug, standing up from the couch. Nothing. Just figured a mother-daughter heart-to-heart might clear the air. Jake, she says, her voice trembling. If there's something you need to tell me, just say it. I stare at her for a long moment, letting the silence stretch. I don't think I'm the one hiding things, Claire. Her eyes widen, her breathing quickens. Are you? Are you saying there's something between you and my mom? I'm not saying anything, I reply coolly. But maybe you should ask yourself why you're so worried about it. She's shaking now, her hands clenched into fists. I can't believe this. Jake, you can't. She's my mother. And Ryan is your coworker. I snap, my voice rising. But that didn't stop you, did it? The words hit her like a slap. She staggers back a step, tears spilling over her cheeks. It wasn't like that, she whispers. Spare me the excuses, I say, brushing past her. You made your bed, Claire. Now lie in it. As I head upstairs, I hear her muffled sobs echoing in the living room. My phone buzzes again. A message from Vivian. She took the bait. It won't be long now. The house feels different the next morning. Heavier, quieter. Claire avoids me completely, her movements tentative as if the air between us might shatter with the slightest wrong step. I know Vivian's plan is working, and the anticipation only fuels my resolve. By midday, Claire is sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her untouched coffee. I decide to poke the bear. You look tired, I say, leaning against the counter. Rough night? She doesn't respond immediately, her eyes fixed on the steam rising from her cup. I couldn't sleep, she admits softly. I pretend to be sympathetic. Something on your mind? Her gaze snaps to mine, sharp and accusing. You know damn well what's on my mind. I tilt my head, feigning innocence. Oh, enlighten me. She slams her coffee cup down, her composure finally cracking. Stop it, Jake. Stop acting like nothing is going on. I'm not stupid. Good to know, I reply calmly, crossing my arms. But if you're looking for answers, maybe you should ask the right questions. She stands abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Fine, she spits. What's going on between you and my mother? I meet her glare head-on, letting the silence stretch until it's unbearable. Then I smirk, just enough to stoke her doubt. Why don't you ask her? The blood drains from her face, her hands trembling at her sides. You're not denying it? Why should I? I counter, my voice cool. You've already made up your mind, haven't you? Her breath hitches, and for a moment, I think she might collapse under the weight of her emotions. But instead, she storms past me, grabbing her keys and heading for the door. "Where are you going?" I call after her. "To get the truth," she snaps, slamming the door behind her. Later that day, Vivian calls me, her voice laced with amusement. "Well, she came storming in here like a hurricane." "And?" I ask, leaning back on the couch. "She accused me of sleeping with you," Vivian says, barely stifling a laugh. I acted horrified, of course. Played the indignant mother card. "Perfect," I reply, grinning. "What did she say?" "She was a mess," Vivian continues, tearing up, stumbling over her words. "She kept saying, 'I just need to know if it's true.' I told her she was being ridiculous, that she should trust her husband." "And did she buy it?" I ask. "Oh, she's still suspicious," Vivian says. "But I think I planted a seed of doubt in her own mind. She's questioning herself now, wondering if she's losing it." "Good," I say, satisfaction washing over me. "Let her question everything." Claire returns home late that evening, her face pale and drawn. She doesn't speak to me as she slips past, heading straight upstairs. I let her go, knowing that the storm inside her is far from over. Vivian texts me once more before I go to bed. She's unraveling. "You've almost got her where you want her." I stare at the message for a long moment before replying, "Almost." The next morning, Claire seems to have aged overnight. Dark circles shadow her eyes, her movements slow and deliberate. She sits across from me at the breakfast table, her hands wrapped around her coffee mug as if it's the only thing keeping her grounded. "Jake," she says finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I glance up from my plate, feigning indifference. "What?" She hesitates, her eyes darting away before she forces herself to meet my gaze. I need to tell you something." I set down my fork, leaning back in my chair. "Go on." Her hands tremble as she places the mug on the table. "You're right. About Ryan. About everything." For a moment, I let the words hang in the air, savoring the weight of her admission. "I know," I say evenly. Her eyes widen slightly, but she doesn't seem surprised. "I'm sorry," she says, her voice cracking. "I don't know why I did it. I was stupid, selfish." "Yeah, you were." I cut her off, my tone sharp. "And now you're sorry because you got caught, not because of what you did." Tears spill over her cheeks, but I feel no sympathy. "Jake, I swear, it didn't mean anything," she pleads. "It was a mistake, just a stupid mistake." I shake my head, my voice cold. "A mistake is spilling your coffee or forgetting someone's birthday, Claire. What you did was a choice, a series of choices that you made knowing exactly what they meant." She sobs openly now, her shoulders shaking. "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this," she says desperately. "Just tell me what to do." I stand, towering over her. "What I want, Claire, is for you to sit in this mess you've made and think about what it's cost us. Think about what you've cost me." Her sobs grow quieter as I walk away, leaving her alone at the table. But I know this isn't the end. Claire isn't the type to sit quietly and accept defeat. She'll try to claw her way back, and when she does, she'll find that I've already moved on. Later that evening, Vivian texts me, "Has she cracked yet?" "She confessed," I reply, "but she still doesn't know about us." Vivian's response is immediate. "Good. Let's keep it that way for now. The longer she stews, the better." I smile to myself, feeling the pieces fall into place. Claire's world is crumbling, and there's no one she can blame but herself. Claire's confession doesn't bring peace, it only intensifies the tension. She's on edge, constantly watching me, waiting for some sign that I'm willing to forgive her. But I stay cold, distant, knowing that my indifference is driving her closer to the brink. Meanwhile, Vivian and I continue to tighten the noose. We decide it's time for one final push, something that will leave Claire questioning everything she thought she knew. "Invite her to dinner at your mom's house," Vivian suggests during one of our secret phone calls. "We'll make it a family affair." I laugh, though the idea sends a thrill through me. "You really want to do this in front of everyone?" "It's the perfect stage," Vivian replies. "She'll be too afraid to make a scene, but the tension will be unbearable. Trust me, Jake. This will be the final nail in her coffin." I agree, and the plan is set. That evening, I tell Claire that Vivian has invited us over for a family dinner. She looks surprised, almost wary, but she doesn't protest. When the night arrives, Claire is unusually quiet as we drive to Vivian's house. I can feel her nerves radiating off her, and it's exactly what I wanted. By the time we pull into the driveway, she's practically vibrating with tension. Vivian greets us at the door, her smile warm and welcoming. She's dressed impeccably, as always, her confidence radiating like a beacon. Claire stiffens beside me, her eyes darting between us as if searching for some unspoken connection. The dinner is as tense as I'd hoped. Vivian plays the perfect hostess, her laughter and charm filling the room while Claire sits in silence, picking at her food. I make a point to compliment Vivian on her cooking, her home, even her dress, and every word seems to chip away at Claire's fragile composure. At one point, Vivian leans over to refill my glass of wine, her hand brushing lightly against mine. It's a fleeting touch, subtle enough to be innocent, but I catch the flicker of anger in Claire's eyes. "Are you okay, Claire?" Vivian asks, her voice sweet but laced with subtle challenge. "You've barely said a word all evening." "I'm fine," Claire replies tightly, forcing a smile. "Just tired, that's all." Vivian nods, her expression sympathetic. "Well, I hope you're getting enough rest. Stress can take such a toll on a person." The comment hangs in the air, sharp and deliberate. Claire's hand clenches around her fork, and for a moment, I think she might snap. But she doesn't. Instead, she excuses herself to the restroom, leaving me and Vivian alone at the table. "That was cruel," I murmur, though I'm grinning. Vivian smirks, sipping her wine. "She's unraveling, Jake. It's only a matter of time." When Claire returns, her face is pale, her expression guarded. She doesn't speak for the rest of the evening, and as we drive home, the silence between us is deafening. Vivian texts me later that night. She's on the edge. "Be ready for the fallout." I reply, "Always." The next morning, Claire is eerily quiet. She moves through the house like a ghost, her eyes distant, her face drawn. I can feel the storm brewing inside her, and I know it's only a matter of time before it breaks. By mid-afternoon, she finally speaks. "Jake," she says, her voice shaky, "can we talk?" I nod, sitting down at the dining table. "What's on your mind?" She sits across from me, her hands trembling as she folds them on the table. "I've been thinking about everything. About us." "Have you?" I say coolly, leaning back in my chair. "And what conclusion have you come to?" Her eyes glisten with unshed tears. "I know I've hurt you, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to know the truth." "The truth?" I repeat, feigning confusion. "About what?" Her voice wavers as she continues. "About you and my mom." There it is, the moment we've been building toward. I let the silence stretch, watching as her fear grows. Finally, I lean forward, my voice low and steady. "What exactly do you think is going on, Claire?" She hesitates, her hands twisting nervously. "I don't know," she whispers, "but something's not right. You've been distant, secretive. And then there's the way you and Mom interact." I tilt my head, pretending to consider her words. "So let me get this straight," I say. "You think I'm having an affair with your mother?" Her face flushes, and she looks away. I don't know what to think anymore. I chuckle softly, though there's no humor in it. "That's rich, coming from you. After everything you've done, you have the audacity to question me?" "I'm not," she starts, but I cut her off. "No, Claire," I say sharply. "You don't get to play the victim here. You lied, you cheated, and now you're looking for someone else to blame. Well, guess what? The only person responsible for this mess is you." Tears spill down her cheeks, but I feel no sympathy. She's reaping what she's sown, and I have no intention of letting her off the hook. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "But if you and Mom," she trails off, unable to finish the sentence. I stand, towering over her. "Maybe you should stop worrying about what I'm doing and start thinking about how you're going to fix the disaster you created." Without another word, I walk away, leaving her sobbing at the table. Upstairs, I grab my phone and text Vivian. She confronted me. She's cracking. Vivian's reply is immediate. Good. Let her stew a little longer. The best is yet to come. Over the next few days, Claire's behavior becomes more erratic. She spends hours locked in the bedroom or pacing the house, muttering under her breath. Her attempts to act normal around me are thinly veiled, and every time her phone buzzes, she jumps like it's a bomb. Meanwhile, Vivian and I continue to pull the strings. Another late-night text from her sends Claire over the edge. The message reads, "Had a great time chatting with Jake tonight. He's such a good listener." Winky face. Claire doesn't confront me directly this time. Instead, she storms out of the house without a word, her face a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I know exactly where she's going. Later that evening, Vivian calls me, barely containing her laughter. "She showed up at my door again," she says, her tone gleeful. "And?" I ask, leaning back on the couch. "She's losing it," Vivian replies. "Accused me outright this time. Said she knew there was something going on between us." "What did you say?" I ask, though I already know the answer. I played the shocked and offended mother. "Of course," Vivian says, her voice dripping with mock indignation. "I told her she was being ridiculous, that she needed to get her head on straight before she destroyed her marriage." "And did she believe you?" I ask, smirking. "Not entirely," Vivian admits, "but she's too scared to press the issue. She doesn't want to be wrong, Jake. That's what's keeping her from calling our bluff. We both know it's only a matter of time before Claire either implodes or lashes out. Either way, the game is nearing its climax, and I can't wait to see how it ends." That night, Claire barely speaks to me. Her eyes are bloodshot, her movements jittery. She's unraveling, and there's nothing she can do to stop it. As we lie in bed, the silence between us is deafening. I can feel the tension radiating off her, the weight of her paranoia pressing down on her like a stone. Finally, she whispers, "Jake, do you still love me?" I don't answer right away. I let the question linger in the darkness, knowing that my silence is more painful than any words I could say. Then, finally, I reply, "I don't know," I say coldly. "Do you even deserve it?" Her breath catches, and I hear her stifle a sob, but I don't comfort her. This is the bed she made, and now she has to lie in it. Vivian texts me the next morning. She's coming apart at the seams. "One more push should do it." I reply, "What's the plan?" Vivian's response is simple. "Come over tonight. Let her catch us." Vivian's plan is daring, risky, and exactly what we need to bring this twisted game to its crescendo. That evening, I tell Claire I'll be working late, and I watch as her expression flickers with suspicion. She doesn't say anything, but I can tell she's mentally logging every detail, preparing for whatever confrontation she's brewing. Instead of heading to work, I drive straight to Vivian's house. She's waiting for me, her smile sharp and triumphant. "Are you ready for this?" she asks as she pours us both a glass of wine. "I've been ready," I reply, clinking my glass against hers. We stage the scene meticulously, 2 glasses of wine on the coffee table, soft jazz playing in the background, and Vivian sitting close to me on the couch. Nothing explicit, but enough to look damning if Claire were to walk in. And she does. The front door swings open, slamming against the wall. Claire stands in the doorway, her face a mask of rage and betrayal. Her chest rises and falls as she takes in the scene before her. Me and Vivian, wine glasses in hand, sitting just a little too close. "What the hell is going on here?" she demands, her voice trembling with fury. Vivian feigns shock, placing a hand over her chest. "Claire, what are you doing here?" Claire's eyes lock onto me, her voice rising. "I knew it. I knew something was going on between you two." I set my glass down calmly and stand, meeting her glare head-on. "You don't know anything, Claire," I say evenly. "You're just looking for someone to blame." "Blame?" she spits, her voice cracking. "You're sitting here with my mother, drinking wine, while I've been tearing myself apart trying to save our marriage." Vivian steps in, her voice soothing but firm. "Claire, stop this. You're being irrational." "Irrational?" Claire snaps, turning on her mother. "I'm not blind, Mom. I see what's going on. Vivian shakes her head, her expression pitying. What you see, Claire, is your own guilt reflected back at you. You've been so consumed by your mistakes that you've invented something that isn't there. For a moment, Claire falters, her eyes darting between us. The weight of Vivian's words sinks in, and I can see her resolve waver. But then her anger reignites, desperate to find footing in the chaos. I don't believe you, she whispers, her voice shaking. I don't believe either of you. Vivian sighs, standing and walking to her daughter. Claire, she says softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. I love you, but you need to take responsibility for your own actions. Jake and we've only ever wanted to help you. Claire's face crumples, and for a moment, she looks like a lost child. I don't know what to believe anymore, she whispers. That's because you've been lying to yourself, I say coldly, stepping closer. You've been so focused on hiding your own sins that you've convinced yourself everyone else is as guilty as you are. She stares at me, her tears falling freely now. Jake, I'm sorry. It's too late for sorry, Claire, I reply. You've burned every bridge, and now you have to live with the consequences. Vivian steps back as Claire collapses into a chair, her sobs echoing through the room. I turn to Vivian, giving her a subtle nod. The game is over, and we've won. Later that night, after Claire has left, Vivian and I sit in silence, the weight of what we've done settling over us. She'll never recover from this, I say quietly. Vivian smiles faintly, sipping her wine. Good. She doesn't deserve to. I raise my glass, toasting to the destruction we've orchestrated. To karma. Vivian clinks her glass against mine. To moving on. Have you ever faced betrayal so deep that it pushed you to the edge? What would you do if your trust was shattered by the people closest to you? Share your thoughts, stories, and experiences in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about resilience, justice, and moving forward. And if this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more intense tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your take. How would you handle a situation like this? Let's discuss it below.